What is up, my fellow Magic nerds? I'm Fuego, and today we are taking a look at one of my new favorite commander decks. And today that is Etali Primal Conqueror. I ended up pulling this at a pre-release and had a lot of fun with it and immediately knew that I wanted to build a deck around Etali. So if you're not familiar with the new one, it is 5 red for a 7/7 trample. When Etali ETBs, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So yeah, free spells. And I love playing other people's cards and using them against them, so this is a winner, and we're going to try to abuse the heck out of that. Etali also has 9 Phyrexian Green to transform into Etali Primal Sickness, 11/11 Trample Indestructible, and when it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. Don't really focus on the flipped version in this deck, but I do have a few cards as kind of a backup strategy to win with Infect. So, first thought with Etali is, how do I blink this as much as possible? Problem is it is green and red, and so the deck has to be green and red, and those are the colors that don't really like to blink. But red is really good at making hasty token copies of things, and so that's kind of what we're going to focus on. So let's dive into Etali here. I don't get to play it as often as I'd like, because most of the time when you pull it out, people go, "Ugh, Etali," and yeah, there's a reason, because usually they're playing good cards, and you're going to steal those good cards. So all right, we'll start with the creatures. Delighted Halfling, this is just sort of a twofer. I mean, the strategy is to ramp as quick as possible to get Etali out. And, well, this is a mana dork that also gives you a little bit of protection to not counter Etali, or to keep Etali from getting countered. Because that will happen. People see that you've ramped up enough and that Etali's coming out soon, and they will hang on to a counter spell. So having a little bit of backup protection is very good. Dragon Master Outcast. This is just some added gravy. Because we're ramping pretty hard in this deck, you're going to have a lot of lands out, and so it's just another way to get some more creatures on the battlefield. Just gravy card. Suspicious Bookcase. This is with the alternate Infect win, just making Etali not be able to be blocked, can slide that Infect damage through. So that's sort of an alternate win card there. Gala Greeters, I'm on the fence about. Just when another creature ETBs, you get a counter, a tap treasure, or gain some life. Mostly I want the tap treasures. I'm just trying to get as much treasure, as many lands out as possible. I think this one's kind of a replaceable card in the deck, but yeah, getting some treasure, not bad. Kedis. Alright, when a commander deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. This is part of the Infect win. So, make Etali unblockable, or hit somebody who's open. With Kedis out, everybody gets the Infect. So, that's just kind of another alternate win. Goblin and Archomancer. Green and red spells cost 1 less. Perfect. That fits in with trying to get things out as quick as possible. Does a lot of heavy lifting. Flamekin Herald. Commander spells you cast have Cascade. Solid. I'm trying to get Etali out as quick as possible, and getting an extra free spell added to all the triggers with Etali. So I like Cascade in this deck a lot. The whole object of the deck is to play as many free spells as possible, and Cascade fits in really nicely with that. So, really like this edition. Ranging Raptors. When they're dealt damage, You search for a land, put it on the battlefield tapped. This is just sort of a creature way to ramp. I've always liked this card just in general. If you block something, boom, get some land. This is just a fun little ramp, and it's on kind of a dinosaur theme, so I like it. Tireless Provisioner, landfall. When a land ETBs, create a food or treasure. We're almost always going treasure. We want as many treasures as possible to get Etali out as soon as possible. Runic Armasaur. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card. Well, get some card draw. People activate stuff all the time. And it's a good blocker early game. So it's tough, it sits around, draws you some cards. One super cute Gore Claw. Creature spells with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. Perfect, that's Etali. So just making Etali cost less. And when it attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1 and trample. That's fine. I've got a lot of big beefy creatures coming up here in this deck, so I really just have it for the big creatures cost 2 less. Just helps me get into Etali a little bit quicker. Here's a fun one. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. Well, the Etali trigger exiles cards from the top of everybody's library, and so the first card you cast among those exiled cards is going to have Cascade, giving you yet another free spell, which is great. That's all we're trying to do, is get as many free spells as possible and basically just plug up the board with all the Etali triggers. Ortheon, Hero of Lavabrink. This card is absolutely bananas in this deck. 1 in a red, tap. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, sacrifice it, blah. Alright, doesn't matter. Because technically all the tokens we create of Etali we have to sacrifice, because legendary creature and all. But they still enter the battlefield before they get sacrificed. So all you have to do is make a token of Etali, and you get all the triggers once again. So that's fantastic. That's kind of the game plan, is making a ton of Etali copies, getting the triggers, then sacking them. And then if you've got the mana, which a lot of times we do, 6/3 red, create 5 tokens that are copies of another creature you control. That's a blowout. That ends the game. You get 5 more Etali triggers, and you've probably already gotten a couple before that. So you're going to end up with a ton of free stuff on the board. So this card is absolutely bananas in this deck. I freaking love it. So yeah, making 5 copies. Sweet. Bramble Sovereign. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a green. If you do, that creature's controller creates a token copy of that creature. Perfect. One that you don't have to sacrifice. There's a lot of creatures that I wouldn't mind having an extra copy of. I mean, mostly we're doing Etali, though. So we get this one out before Etali. Boom, Etali comes in, make a copy, get a whole new set of ETB triggers. Bramble Sovereign, very solid. Geode Golem. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. Fantastic. That's just another way to get Etali out a little bit earlier. If anybody is open, it's a 5/3 trample. Fantastic. I don't think I've thrown this in any other deck, but this deck is sole purpose is to get Etali out as quick as possible. So just being able to get this guy across and get a free Etali, fantastic. Nalfeshni. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. You can choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent, it gains haste and then sack it. Every card you cast with the Etali's trigger is from exile. So basically you get double every spell that Etali hits, which is awesome. So Cool card, ugly card, but it does a good job just doubling everything you hit with Etali. Hellkite Courser. When it ETBs, you may put a commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield. It gains haste, and then return it to the command zone. Awesome. Just more Etali triggers. You can blink this and get more Etali, bring in your commander again, get those triggers. There's a bunch of ways to abuse this. You can copy it, bust Etali in again. This is bananas. This is a new edition. I haven't gotten a chance to play any games with it, but it seems like a really solid card in this deck. Just as many shenanigans as you can pull with Etali, you can do the same thing with this and get the Etali triggers. So, fantastic. We got Kodama the East Tree. When another permanent ETBs under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. Great, I've got a lot of really beefy things, and so sometimes they're going to be stuck in my hand. I play something big, I get something just slightly less big. It's fantastic. So this just gives me more free spells, which is what this wants to do. And I like having some high CMC things in here just to, when I trigger Cascade or when I get the Etali triggers, I get big free spells. And this fits into that. 0/3 Flash Cascade Reach. And so the Cascade's the important part. I'm hoping to hit something free off of it. And when it ETBs, put 3/+1 counters on each of any number of target creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. If I hit this off of Etali, I Cascade, get something else. I've played a few things off of my opponent's libraries, and all of them are going to get +1 counters. So, I'm not sure how crazy good this is, but it's just value. Having a 6-mana Cascade that I can hit off of Etali and get other further Cascades off of that feels good. Burn Sun's Avatar, same kind of thing, only it gains you life. So all the creatures that ETB under your control, you gain life equal to their toughness. Just something big that I can bounce back a little bit. You gain 5 life off of it immediately, and then I should be getting a lot of free stuff, which will also gain me more life. So, Verdant Sun's Avatar, solid. Rampaging Bronodon, sticking with the dinosaur theme. 5/2 green for a 7/7 trample. When it attacks, you get +1 for each land you control. Well, I'm going to have a ton of land, so this thing just ends up being a huge beat stick. And just trying to close things out with some big damage. That'll do the job. And if I can get it for free off of Etali, all the better. More dinosaurs, Annoyed Altasaur. 6/5 Reach, Trample, Cascade. So just getting some more free stuff. Like I said, the Cascade works really nice in this deck because you're already getting free spells. Might as well tack on another free one. Another new pickup, we've got Old Gnawbone. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. Fantastic. I want to ramp. I've got a bunch of big stuff. Now, clearly, I've already gotten to 7 before putting this out, but just getting a ton more treasure to play some more of the big stuff and do some more shenanigans just feels like some solid value. Just a cool card. Alright, so that was the creature suite. Now we're on to spells. I'm broken into a few different areas, but we're starting with Ramp, Burgeoning. Opponent plays a land, you can put a land into play. Just to help get you ahead early game. We got basically 3 of the same card. Nature's Lore, 2 mana, search for a forest, put it on the battlefield. Search for a forest, put it on the battlefield. Search for a plains, island, swamp, mountain, put it on the battlefield. They're all 2 mana. Gets you a land untapped, which is fantastic. This one will find you a mountain, which could be nice because we need mountains. But yeah, ramp. Rampant growth. So more ramp. Cultivate, more ramp. Migration Path, some bigger ramp, some 4 mana, get 2 lands with cycling, so late game you can still ditch it to get a better card, but yeah, more ramp. The new version of Sword of the Animist, which will get you some more lands onto the battlefield tapped whenever the equipped creature attacks. Yeah, we've got some creatures. We might as well try to get some more lands out. Just seemed like a good include. Now we're into the fun stuff. So these are blink type spells. We've already had a bunch of copy, create a token copy, those kind of creatures. This is a neat old card that I didn't know existed until I was looking for new ways to blink in a colorless manner. So 1 mana to play it, 2 and sacrifice it to remove a creature from the game. Return that creature to play under its owner's control at end of turn. So you can use this to save Etali from removal, and then it'll come back at the end of the turn, giving you the triggers once again. Cool card, pretty cost effective to get those triggers again. And it also will save Etali. Blade of Selves is ridiculous. Equipped creature has Myriad. So you put it on Etali, swing with Etali, and you're going to get token copies of Etali for each opponent. And of course you're going to sacrifice them, but they still enter, so you're going to end up with usually 2 more copies of Etali coming in if you're playing a 4-player commander game. So every time Etali attacks, you're going to get extra copies, which is bananas to get that many more triggers. Strionic Resonator. Copy target triggered ability you control. Great. I'm copying Etali's ETB ability. And there's some other good abilities you can copy, but that's really what it's there for. You're copying that ability as much as possible. Twin Flame. 2 mana, copy Etali. Done. I mean, you can strive and make multiple copies of different things, but basically 2 mana, get Etali's triggers once again. Solid. This is a great one. Flame Shadow Conjuring. When a non-token creature ETBs under your control, you can pay 1 red. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Gains haste, exile it end step. Great, so everything you play, you can pay 1 more and get a hasty copy of it. Basically Etali. And if you have some things like that blink Etali, you can trigger this again. So basically 1 red mana, double Etali trigger every time Etali comes in. Or yeah, that's just crazy good. Panharmonicon, solid in a lot of decks. If an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Double triggers. And there's so many things that are in this deck that trigger. But yeah, basically you're doubling up on Etali triggers, which is fantastic. Well worth the 4 mana. Conjurer's Closet seems a little slow at 5 mana, but at the beginning of your end step, blink a creature. Great. So for 5 mana, I'm going to blink Etali every turn. Seems good. And there's other creatures that can benefit from the blink, but basically you're just trying to hit Etali every single time with this. So that's most of the colorless blink or make a copy. Got to have some removal. So Nature's Claim, Kenrith's Transformation, just a few answers. Spiteful Banditry is a fun one. That's a new one. When it enters, it deals X damage to each creature. Whenever 1 or more creatures your opponents control die, you create a treasure token. So this is both removal and ramp, which I like. It's a very cool card. Chaos Warp, classic answer. Love it. Blasphemous Act, sure, board wipe, gotta have at least some answers in that category. And now we're on to Protection. Savage Summoning, this lets you flash Etali if you need to, and keep it from being countered. So the next creature you cast has flash, and it can't be countered. And it ETBs with an extra +1 counter. I mean, that just seems like a lot of good stuff for 1 green mana. And again, you're going to want to protect Etali from being countered, because people will hold up counters for it. So if you're able to stop that, all the better. So that's just good protection. Then we've got some very similar protection cards. Snakeskin Veil, Hexproof, Blossoming Defense, Hexproof, Tameo Safekeeping, Hexproof and Indestructible. What I like is this will hit any permanent you control. So if they're trying to get rid of your Panharmonicon or Conjurer's Closet, you can stop that, or you can save Etali. Heroic Intervention, fantastic card. Everything you control has Hexproof and Indestructible. Save that board. Wrap and Vigor, I don't see people playing enough, but just regenerate each creature you control. Really solid for board wipes when you want to keep your board intact. Swiftfoot Boots, yeah, you want Etali to be hexproof. Rhythm of the Wild, this is another protecting you from counter spells. So creature spells you control can't be countered. And that's fine that non-token creatures have Riot. That's just some added gravy, but really, you just don't want your stuff to be countered. Bolt Bend, solid, can save your stuff, can change the course of the game. Just getting to change the target of a spell or ability. This is just for fun. Take an extra turn after this one if an opponent played a blue spell this turn. That's just fun. Everybody likes to take an extra turn, and if you can take an extra turn for 1 and a green, it's not going to always be relevant, but enough people play blue that it should be relevant. Compost, cool card draw. Just whenever a black card is put into one of your opponent's graveyards, you can draw a card. And it doesn't matter if they're discarding or a creature dies, anything. They play a spell. Any black card goes into a graveyard, you draw that card. I think this is an overlooked card quite often, but for 1 and a green, you're going to draw some cards. A lot of people play black, especially in my group, so solid. Harmonize, draw cards. Garruk's Uprising. ETB, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have Trample, which is nice. I have a lot of beefy creatures, so that could help close out the game. And then whenever you play a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Well, I'm going to be bringing my commander in and out quite a bit. So it's just a card draw engine with the added gravy of giving your creatures Trample, which can help in the end. This one I'm a little on the fence with. I'm not sure if it seems good, but for 4 mana, I don't know if it's great. So you can look at the top card of your library at any time, which is nice because you're going to hit the Etali trigger, so you kind of know, you can plan around, know what you have coming. You can cast creature spells from the top of your library, and creatures you control have tap to add 1 mana of any color. So it is a ramp. I'm not like super creature focused for the early game, but it is a way of ramping, and it gives you some top of the library shenanigans. I'm going to have to play with it a few games to see how I really feel about it. It just seemed good enough to make the cut, though. Elven Chorus. Passionate Archaeologist. Oh, this is a fun one. Commander creatures you own have, whenever you cast a spell from exile, this creature deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. Well, you're casting a ton of stuff from exile. It triggers off of Etali's trigger, it triggers off of Cascade. You're just, for 2 mana, this will do a ton of damage if it sticks around. You're going to be hitting the Etali triggers, and you're just going to be burning the heck out of people with it. So this thing is an absolute rock star in this deck. Yeah, between Etali's triggers and Cascade, you're doing so much shenanigans from exile. It's ridiculous. So, great way to spend 2 mana. Majestic Genesis. So this is another big bomb card that I really want to be hitting off of Etali. Reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. You may put any number of permanent cards from among those onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom. So, yeah, I mean, I think Etali is 7 mana? Yeah, Etali's 7, so I'm going to look at the top 7 and get to put all those permanents on the battlefield. And I have a lot of big beefy things, so best if I can hit this off of Etali. Still good, even if I'm not getting it for free. It's a fine way to spend 8 mana. It can really turn the tide. There's a new Ent card that does something very similar that I kind of want for this deck, but I'll get it eventually. But this is just a great hit. And I think the only Planeswalker in the deck, Domri. Alright, static ability of creatures get +1/+0. That's fine. Here it is, +1, add a red or a green, creature spells you cast this turn can't be countered. And then there's a -2 fight. Yeah, this is basically another one of the prevent somebody from countering Etali. So it gives you a little bit of ramp with the +1 and yeah, just protection. So ramp and protection, that's exactly what this deck wants to do. And then the added benefit of beefing your creatures and allowing them to fight, also good. Whenever possible, play MDFCs. Balagad Recovery is one of the best. So, if you need it to be, it's a land. If not, you can return a card from graveyard to hand. Solid. I don't think everybody knows that that's a solid card. Then we have our rocks. Gotta have a Soul Ring, Signet, Felwar Stone, and the Thran Dynamo. Again, you're just trying to ramp as quick and as hard as possible to get Etali out. Now we are into some lands. So first up, we've got kind of an interesting one that, there's not a ton of reason to play this in most decks, but for this one, it's pretty cool. 2 and tap it to remove a creature you control from the game. Then you can pay 0 and sacrifice it to return all creatures it removed from the game directly into play under their owner's control, as though they were just summoned. So it's just another way you can save Etali, you can save some of your other really good creatures, and then sack it at your upkeep to bring those creatures back. So just getting your triggers again, it's just sort of it's safe haven. It's a little fail safe on keeping people from getting rid of Etali. Rogue's Passage, get that creature unblockable. That's for the infect side of Etali, just to get some extra damage through or to win with the infect. Just another way to do it, just like the Suspicious Bookcase. Kessig Wolfrun, just a little bit of utility there. You can give something +X/+O and trample. So that could be a way to close out a game if you really need to get some damage through. That'll help you get damage through. War Room, draw some cards. Etali's only a 2-color, so you're only going to pay 2 life and draw a card. It's okay. Strip Mine, just an answer for troublesome lands. Ancient Tomb, gotta get that mana fast. Temple of the False God, get that mana fast. And yeah, we're ramping, so 5 or more lands isn't hard to hit. We've got Paths of the Dead, which is Cavern of Souls, which I just dig the art for. I like this version of it. And again, it's just protecting us from counter spells. We really don't want Etali to get countered and have to wait another turn or two to cast her. So just some more protection. Then the ubiquitous Command Tower, Fabled Passage. We get a couple of dual type lands, give us our color fixing. Really need to get some better ones because I'm playing Highland Forest, which isn't great. And then, got to have a handful of basics to do the basic things. So that is the breakdown of Etali. I'm having a ton of fun with this. You get to play so much. Like, the board state gets absolutely ridiculous. You're just stealing people's cards left and right. You're playing big, splashy things. And to me, it feels like what Commander's all about, is just playing big, stupid spells and having a lot of fun with it. And just seeing the salt on people's face when you steal their best thing and play it against them. But really, it's their fault for putting it in their deck in the first place. Like, if they didn't play good decks, then I wouldn't have anything good to take from them and play. So, there we go. That's Etali. If you've got any suggestions, I just sort of threw this together, picked a few pieces. I'm sure there are some definite upgrades to this deck, and I would love to hear any suggestions on good upgrades, especially ways to blink or abuse Etali in either colorless, green, or red. Alright, I'll be back with some other ones. This is just my new favorite that I wanted to share with you all today. Thanks for hanging out, thanks for joining me, and I will see you on the next one. Be fabulous.